Welcome to the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. I'm your host, Chris LeBrun, helping you achieve your goals in every area of life so you can dream big, plan smart, and live fully. Your calendar doesn't lie, but here's the part nobody talks about. Neither does an empty one. You've probably heard some version of this idea before. Show me your calendar and I'll show you your priorities. And look, there's real truth in that. If you say family is your number one priority, but your calendar is wall to wall with work, and there's not a date night or a kids game anywhere in sight, your calendar is telling on you. But I want to take this a step further today because for a lot of us, myself included, the problem wasn't what was on the calendar. The problem was what wasn't. For a long time, I had a running list of things that I needed to get done. Projects, tasks, follow-ups, goals, all of it captured, all of it sitting there waiting. And my calendar, wide open. Plenty of space. Looked like I had all the time in the world. But here's what actually happened in all of that open space. I wandered. I'd sit down for work, and without any structure telling me what this hour was for, my brain would just kind of drift. I'd start something, get pulled towards something else, remember a third thing, and by the end of the day, I'd looked busy, but moved almost nothing forward. The list stayed full, the calendar stayed empty, and I stayed frustrated. An empty calendar feels like freedom. What it actually is a blank canvas with no frame. And without the frame, nothing gets finished. The shift for me came when I started treating my calendar as a full representation of my actual life, not just my meetings. I started time blocking, assigning specific work to specific windows of time. And then I took it one step further. I put my commute on my calendar. Now, I know that sounds a little obsessive, okay? But here's why it matters. If I have a 30-minute commute in the morning and I don't account for it, my calendar is lying to me about how much time I actually have. I look at that 9 a.m. meeting and an 8 a.m. open block and think, great, I have an hour to work. Except I don't. I'm in the car for half of that time. Putting the commute on my calendar means my schedule finally reflects reality. And when your schedule reflects reality, you can actually plan inside of it. This is what I mean when I say your calendar is a self-portrait, not just of your priorities, but of your self-awareness, of how honestly you are looking at your own life and your own time. In my Holistic Productivity Planner, time blocking is baked in to the daily layout and to a section that I call Sunday Strategy, which is planning your entire week. Because I believe so strongly that I built the system around it. Not because it's trendy, but because I watched it change the way that I work. When every hour has a purpose, even the small ones, something shifts. You stop reacting to your day and you start leading it. Here's what I want you to try this week. Open your calendar and look at it honestly. Not just what's scheduled, but at what's missing. Are your most important projects assigned to actual time slots? Or are they just living on a list somewhere, hoping you'll get to them sometime? Is your calendar showing you a day you actually have, or an idealized version that ignores your commute, your transitions, your lunch? Take time to fill in the picture, all of it. Because when your calendar finally tells the truth about your life, that's when you can start making it look like the life you actually want. Your calendar is a self-portrait. Make sure it looks like the version of you that you want to see. So we just talked about how your calendar is a self-portrait, a reflection of what you actually value, not just what you say you value. But I want to take it a step further today and give you a practical tool that you can use to help you from that. And it comes from the accounting world. And I know accounting world is not the most riveting phrase I've ever said on this show, but stay with me because this idea is genuinely going to change how you think about your time. Now, in traditional budgeting, departments usually start with last year's budget and adjust from there. If you spent 40,000 on travel last year, you'll probably put 40,000 or maybe 42,000 in that line item for travel this year. The assumption is that if it was there in the budget before, it probably belongs there again. Something called zero-based budgeting flips that completely on its head. You start from zero. Every single line item has to be justified based on what you're actually planning to do this year. It doesn't matter what you've spent before, you have to earn your way back in, or the money does. The reason finance teams love zero-based budgeting is because it kills old assumptions. It forces us to ask, does this expense still make sense? Does it serve what we're actually trying to accomplish right now? I managed a budget for a fundraising department for a number of years, and zero-based budgeting completely changed how I approached our planning process. I couldn't just roll over the travel line item or the printing budget from last year. I had to look at every project and event we were planning for the coming year and build the budget around those actual activities. If we weren't going to do a big donor mailing this year, the printing budget came down. And if we were hosting a new regional event for our donors for the first time, we had to justify every single dollar that we put into that line item. It was definitely more work up front, but it made us sharper, more intentional, and it got rid of all the budget creep that comes from just assuming the past should predict the future. Now, here's the question I want you to think about for a little bit. What if we did the same thing with our time? Most of us manage our calendars exactly like a lazy traditional budget. We keep what's already there and then we add new stuff on top and never stop to ask whether the old commitments still deserve a place. Zero-based scheduling means you start with a blank calendar. Nothing carries over automatically. Every recurring meeting, every standing appointment, every weekly obligation has to justify why it's earning a spot on your schedule going forward. Think about those standing one-on-one meetings with your team. When someone was brand new, those weekly check-ins made all the sense in the world. They needed guidance, they needed context, they needed reassurance. 3 years later, that person is a seasoned contributor. Does the same meeting still need to happen every single week? Or has it just become a habit that nobody has questioned because that's just what's always been on the calendar? Zero-based scheduling gives you the permission. Actually, it gives you the framework to ask that question. I'll give you a personal example that has nothing to do with work because this theory really applies to every area of life. A couple of years ago, I was a regular seller at a local toy show. I'd set up a table every month and sell Lego minifigs and sets. And honestly, it was a lot of fun. Most months, the sales were solid. Some months were not so good. I enjoyed the community of it, and my son loved going and looking for old Transformers. That's what he's really into. But here's what I wasn't paying attention to: all the prep work. I had to spend a couple evenings the week before the show to get my inventory updated, to get everything organized and priced and in the boxes. And then show day, I'm driving to the show, setting up early, being there all day, tearing down, driving home. For a while, I just kept doing it because it was fun. We enjoyed it. And I had always been doing it, or at least for the last several years. It was a fixture on my monthly calendar. But when I finally stopped and looked at it honestly, really looked at the time cost, I realized it was eating up a full weekend's worth of bandwidth every single month. And by that point, I had projects that I cared about much more deeply that were constantly getting pushed aside because the toy show was always on the calendar. So I stopped doing it. Not because selling Lego wasn't enjoyable, it still is, but because I couldn't justify its place on my calendar anymore. When I held it up against everything else that time could go for, and the ways that I could use that time, it just didn't make sense. That's zero-based scheduling at work, not for a professional goal, but for a personal one. And this matters for every area of our life: professional, personal, and purpose-driven goals. On the professional side, we talked about it. It's those standing meetings, the recurring commitments, the check-ins that once made sense but haven't been reevaluated in years. On the personal side, it's commitments like hobbies, social obligations, routines that felt right at one stage of life but haven't been scrutinized since. And on the purpose side, the things that connect you to your deeper why and bring purpose to your life. This might be where zero-based scheduling does its most important work, because it's too easy to let the urgent crowd out the meaningful. When you start from zero, you have to actively choose to protect the things that matter most. They don't just survive by default. We have to put them back on the calendar on purpose. So here's what I want to leave you with. You don't have to overhaul your entire life this week. That would be a little bit crazy. The beautiful thing about zero-based scheduling is that you can try it at whatever scale makes sense right now. Try it for a single day. Look at everything on your schedule tomorrow and ask, if this weren't already there, would I put it on my calendar? Try it for a week. Try it for a month. Give yourself that runway before you commit to doing a full calendar audit every year. But even if you're not ready to go all in, start by doing this one thing. Look at the recurring items on your calendars, the stuff that just show up automatically every week or every month, and ask yourself whether they still make sense. Whether there's something more strategic, more meaningful, or more aligned with who you're trying to become that could use that time instead. Your calendar is a self-portrait. We've determined that. And zero-based scheduling is how you make sure it's painting the right picture. All right? That's it for the show today. Check out the show notes. You can find those at holisticproductivity.com/62. Make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. You can watch the show there. That's always a lot of fun. You can check out some of my Lego collection in the background if you watch it on YouTube. And again, the best reason to subscribe and follow is that we've got new episodes that drop every week. You do not want to miss those. If you enjoyed today's show, if something kind of clicked and you said, man, that was a good thought, I'd love to see you rate the podcast. Of course, we'd love to see 5 stars, but that's just a better way to help other people find the show. It really lets them know that you found value in it, and I'm sure they can appreciate that. You can follow at Wholistic Productivity on all of the social medias that exist out. Well, not all of them, but the big ones: Instagram, Facebook, Threads, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Substack. A lot of great productivity tips and motivation throughout the week. So make sure that you are looking for that. And it's not just the same stuff you see on the podcast, a lot of different stuff there as well. Join the Holistic Productivity community. It's free, doesn't cost anything. It's online. Lots of great people from around the world, great resources. Again, you can have that absolutely free. This just helps you stay accountable, helps you stay motivated, and I would love to see you in the community. Link is in the show notes. Thanks again for listening. Love having you be a part of the show. As always, the reason that I do this, the reason that I'm doing the podcast every single week is to help you dream big, plan smart, and live fully. And I'm just so excited to see all the things that you can accomplish when you do that. All right? Take care. We'll see you next time.